Hi everyone, Angela here. Make the holidays extra special with this handmade standing gift bag. The link for this pattern and the full tutorial is down on the left and in the description below. Carefully cut out each pattern piece and the small notches on each one. If your outer fabric has a directional print, make sure it's facing the correct way. With the fabric right sides together, place piece A on top with the grain line parallel to the selvage and cut out. Because there are a lot of angles, you may find it easier to trace around the pattern and then cut out. I'm using medium weight fusible interfacing with the glue on one side. Cut 2 of piece A. Now the interfacing is optional. If you're using heavier outer fabric, it may not be necessary. With your lining right sides together, cut 2 of piece B. Cut the notches at the top and sides. Clip together if you need to. For the top channel, I'm using gold lame. Cut 2 and the notches on the sides. With the interfacing, glue side up, place the main piece on top with the wrong side down. Match all the edges and press together, then repeat with the other side. Trim away any excess interfacing from the edges. Stack the outer pieces with right sides together, place the pattern piece back on top, cut the top notch through all the layers, and clip together if you need to. I'm using the Juki TL 2010Q sewing machine. The link for this and the tools I use are down in the description below. If you're in Australia or New Zealand, click the link for Echidna Sewing and Juki Junkies for North America. For the channels, place the fabric wrong side up and fold over each short end 1/4 inch twice. Have the inner fold in line with the left side of the presser foot and edge stitch across, back stitching at the start and finish. Using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, stitch around the sides and bottom of the lining. Backstitch at the start and finish and at the notches on the side, leaving an opening in between. At the corner, stitch right to the very edge with the needle down. Carefully pivot the bottom seam right against the needle and continue stitching. Repeat for the other corner and finish at the top. Sewing box corners this way makes it a lot easier to line the seams up. Separate the fabric, pulling it apart to match the edges. Nest the seams so that one faces one direction and the other faces the opposite. Feel with your fingers that the seam lines align and match in the center. Using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, stitch across, back stitching at each end. Repeat with the other corner, but nest the seams in the opposite direction so that the bottom seam stays flat. If you're finding this video helpful, make sure to like, share, subscribe, turn on all notifications, and leave a comment below. As always, I'd love to know where in the world you're watching from. You can also show your support by becoming a member or tapping the thanks button down below. Again, using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, stitch together the sides and bottom of the outer fabric. Backstitch at the start and finish, and pivot at the corners. For the outer corners, stop 1/4 inch from the edge, have the needle down, lift the presser foot, and pivot. To figure out where to pivot for the inner corners, imagine the seam line coming up from the next edge until it's in line with your needle. Pivot at this point. You can use an awl or a point turner like I'm using to help with the stitching. Don't worry if it's not exact for this project. After pivoting, just check that you still have 1/4 inch seam allowance. If it's really short, just go back and sew another stitch before you pivot. When you get to this short edge, don't pivot at the corner. Instead, stitch straight down to the edge with your needle down. These two edges will make up the boxed corner. Carefully pivot the bottom seam around right against the needle and continue stitching. Repeat for the next bottom corner, pivoting the short side seam against the needle, then stitch all around, finishing at the top. On both sides, clip into the seams at the top where it's angled. Clip as close to the stitching as possible, being careful not to cut it. For all the outer corners, trim off the tip and then the sides to remove the bulk. Again, trim close to the stitching without cutting it. For all the inner corners, carefully cut right into the point. Also clip into the inner corners at the bottom. To box out the bottom corners, have the side of the bag on top, separate the fabric, nesting the seams and matching the edges. Again, using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, stitch across, backstitching at each end. Make sure your seam doesn't catch the point at the side. Turn over to repeat with the other corner. Nest the seams in the opposite direction so the bottom seam stays flat. Go in and gather up the bag like a sock, fold over the seams of the points and push in. This makes it just a bit easier when turning those points. Turn the bag right side out. You can see the seams at the bottom match nicely when using this corner method. Use a knitting needle or a point turner to carefully push out all the corners. Open up the side seams at the top and press flat with your fingers. Fold a channel piece in half with wrong sides together, matching the longer edges. With right sides together, center it onto the top of the outer bag. Match all the edges and center notches and clip in place. The sides of the channel should end just before the side seam. Clip both ends in place, then repeat on the other side. Be sure to have a look at my other Christmas tree gift bag pattern in 3 different sizes. With the wrong side of the bag on top, stitch all around close to the edge to hold the channel in place. Make sure to keep the side seams open flat. There's no need to backstitch. With right sides together, place the outer bag into the lining. Open flat the lining seams at the top. Match the side seams and the top edges, then clip all around if you need to. Using a 1/3 of an inch seam allowance and the outer bag on top, stitch all around. There's no need to backstitch, just overlap your stitching at the end. From the opening, pull out the bag so that the lining is right side out. Fold in the seam allowances at the opening. Match the folds and edge stitch it closed, backstitching at the start and finish. Put the lining inside and push out the bottom corners. Pull on the top channels and press along the seams. For the drawstrings, I'm using thin cording and I've put clear tape around the ends to prevent fraying. I'm using this type of bodkin to pull it through. You can also use a safety pin or a hairpin. Thread the cord in at one end and go all around so it comes out on the same side. Match the ends and tie them together in a knot. Repeat with the second cord, threading it in from the other side. What's great about this bag is that it stands up neatly with that flat base. Use it for all kinds of gifts or as decoration. I hope you enjoy making this gift bag. Thanks again for watching. Take care and happy holidays.